All right, welcome everyone to a new episode of the Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro podcast. I am your host, Toby Passman. On the show with me today, we have a very special guest, Randy Gage. Randy is a thought-provoking critical thinker who will make your approach to business and your life in a new whole way. He's the author of 14 books translated into 25 languages, including the New York Times bestsellers Risky is the New Safe and Mad Genius. Randy rose from a jail cell as a teen to becoming a successful entrepreneur. He has spoken to more than 2 million people across more than 50 countries and is a member of the Speakers Hall of Fame. When Randy isn't prowling the podium or locked in his lonely writer's garret, you'll probably find him playing third base for a softball team somewhere. Randy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Toby, great to be on with you.
Absolutely. So I love talking to people with who've overcome a great amount of adversity and have rose to a lot of success. And it sounds like your story definitely involved a lot of adversity. So tell me about kind of what how things kind of started for you in your life.
Well, I think like most people, we learn a lot more from our failures and our mistakes and our setbacks than we do our successes. So I happen to fail a lot more than most people in more spectacular ways. So as you mentioned in the intro, I was actually in jail for armed robbery when I was 15 and burglary. So I was a teenage alcoholic, teenage drug addict. So obviously I made a lot of really poor choices at that point in my life. And of course, things like that, having business failures, relationship challenges, all of those things help me learn and grow and modify. My work really for the last 30 years has been about the principles of prosperity. But I think you and I would, what's the opposite of digress? I guess ingress. I don't know. Our work would really come together in one sense because you're looking at all the neuroscience stuff from a expertise level, let's say, where I'm looking at all the neuroscience stuff from the layman's position, just as someone like, okay, why do people do the things they do? Why do they self-sabotage themselves? Why do they do things that are so self-destructive? What causes that? So I've really spent 30 years researching the mind viruses and the limiting beliefs and how we create core foundational beliefs and then how those beliefs impact our lives.
Right. And it sounds like, I've had kind of a lot of similar questions that I've approached in terms of more, sort of looking at the biological basis of behavior and our thoughts and actions. But totally the way I see it, I view myself in sort of translational neuroscience, and translating kind of the work of the researchers who've been, studying some specific thing for 30 years in their lab, and they have books piled up, but lay people may not be able to understand some of that stuff. So I think that's why it's so important for kind of a fusion of both sides. I think it could be tremendously beneficial for everyone, because neuroscience along with just kind of mindset sort of stuff is so important.
Yeah, I was doing a speech in Panama. And one of my friends was in the audience, and he had his mother with him, and she's a psychologist. So she knows his name's Eric. He's my brother from another mother, best friend, BFF, whatever. And so I've known him a while, and he's spoken of me frequently to his mother, obviously. And so she's there at this speech I'm doing, and she says to him, "Why didn't you tell me he was a psychologist?" And Eric says, "No, Mom, he's not a psychologist." She said, Oh, yes, he obviously has to be. The things he's saying about why people do the things they do. I mean, only a psychologist would know that. It's like, Mom, he's a high school dropout. He has no degrees at all. She's like, that's impossible. That can't be. And I get that reaction a lot. But what people, I think they don't recognize is when you're an addict, like I was, you become the world's preeminent expert on how to manipulate people, how to run rackets, how to get them to do things for you, right? You get, because maybe you need them to lie for you and cover you at work. Maybe you need to hustle them for money to get to your next fix, whatever. You become such a pathological liar. You will say or do anything to get them to support your fix, right? And then, and I've been in the crack houses, the worst crack houses in Overtown and Liberty City and Miami and National City and San Diego. And, those, that's like the Tony Montana stuff, where you go in there and there's someone laying on the bed and underneath is a rifle or a pistol. And you become a really good judge of human behavior, or you go out of there in a body bag, right? So, I have a new book coming out next week, and I tell that story in the book about Eric's mother. And, I joke that, listen, if you have a chance to believe 27 double-blind studies conducted by 15 universities with, or my intuition, bet the rent on my intuition, because I have learned why people do the things they do, but totally from a layman's perspective.
Well, I mean, it reminds me of street smarts. I mean, the so-called street smarts. It sounds like that's what you were forced to sort of develop at a young age. I guess despite kind of being at a sort of low point. I mean, you did those sort of like the skills as far as like, I want to say being able to like read people really well. I guess manipulate maybe in a business sense might be more, influence, say in a good way. Did those sort of did that, I guess what I'm asking, did that what you maybe learned in your earlier years, did that translate at all to your current kind of business career?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because, and it's like anything, money, guns, drugs, anything can be used for good, can be used for evil, right? So,
Absolutely.
and it's based on your personality. So when I was an addict, I'm using that stuff in evil ways, right? But once you develop prosperity consciousness, character, under integrity, then you realize, okay, I have these gifts which I can use for good instead of for bad. And even just, selling dope in middle school, right, taught me entrepreneurial skills, which I still use decades later, right?
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, so was when you like what was, I guess, the turning point in your life? Was it going to prison?
Well, I didn't. I was in jail for months, and I was really fortunate. There were people who believed in me, a public defender who believed in me. And when I finally got to court, I got probation, and uh, took advantage of that other chance. I was going to say second chance, but it was really more like a 10th chance by that point, right? So I took advantage of that 10th chance or whatever it was. And yeah, I mean, that didn't turn my life around forever, but it turned me around in the sense of, okay, I'm going to do this the honest way. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to play by the rules, and I'm going to play that game, the free enterprise game. and I'm going to do it with integrity, because I don't like the retirement plan the other way. I don't like the outcomes the other way. And obviously, I had other fits and starts along my, rotations around the sun since then. So we all have, I think, multiple. This new book I mentioned is called Radical Rebirth, and it's about how to kill off the old you if you want to reinvent yourself. And that's what I feel I've done. My friends like to joke that, well, Randy must be on his fourth midlife crisis about now. And they'll kind of joke like, hey, do you think you finally got it right this time? And I always answer, I hope not. I hope I have another 4 or 5 midlife crises before I leave this planet or another planet, right? Because I think it's about, I get that there are people who are just content where they are, okay? They keep their head below the cubicle, they clock out on Friday night, they binge on Netflix all weekend with a 12-pack of beer, and they don't think about their life of quiet desperation. I can't do that, right? And I don't think people of higher consciousness can do that. So I think we have to challenge ourselves. We have to grow. We have to question premises. And so for me, what the book is about, I think, is kind of the culmination of my work for all these 30 years, which is, how do I become the highest possible version of myself? And that's kind of what I want to guide readers through is, how do you become the highest possible version of yourself?
And it sounds like you've really learned to sort of embrace the challenges, that embrace the struggles and curveballs that life throws at you instead of running away. My question for you is, was that sort of always the case? Did you always have that sort of mindset? Or, I mean, I assume there had to have been some pretty low moments while you're awaiting your court case. I mean, did you ever sort of think like, damn, I sort of blew it, my life's over? Or have you always sort of had that mindset of, whatever life throws at me, I can handle it?
No, I've had several times where I thought, okay, my life is over. I have blown it. I had my chance and I messed it up. And fortunately, I never, I was able to turn that around. I actually I'm doing a prosperity live stream every Saturday now. I started it this week, literally for the new year. And I opened with the story of being at the Miami Airport Marriott on Christmas Eve, writing my suicide note in a journal. And, I've had those kind of moments in my life. Unfortunately, I got professional help. I had a therapist I could call and didn't make that mistake, because that would have been a horrific mistake, right? But I don't want people to think that I say, oh, great, I got a bad diagnosis from the doctor. What a great opportunity this is. Wow, my car was just totaled in an accident. What a delightful turn of events this is. I hate setbacks and challenges and obstacles just as much as anyone else, right? We have our idea of what we want to do and how we want to do it. And we hate it when the universe has other plans, right? And so I'm no different that way, but I've been kicked around enough and got up enough to know that, yeah, you know what? Some of these I've been shot and left for dead in a robbery. I had a business that was seized by the IRS on non-payment of taxes. And I wouldn't change a thing on any of those. Those were the greatest lessons that I had in my life, because they're the wake-up call that the universe sends you that says, hey, if you keep doing this pathway, this is where you're going to end up, and you're probably not going to like it. And if you don't learn the lesson, the universe is really happy to send it to you again and again until you do learn it, right? And so I've just kind of said, you know what, I think I'd rather just learn the lesson the first time and not have to go through all this drama and trauma another time.
Well, there's certainly I feel like there's, you know, like the sort of average sort of person that you were describing, which is so funny the way you describe it, because I've said it the same way to friends, like, you know, just the person who clocks in, clocks out, drinks beer on the weekends,
Yeah.
watches sports, doesn't really care for much more in their life. You know, I feel like that's the type of person. It's like we all, you know, dislike this sort of radical changes and struggle, but it's like I feel like it's those people who really, really turn away from it. They really don't, you know, choose to even take on any challenge. Whereas, you know, what you're talking about, you may, I guess you're saying, you know, you may not necessarily like it, but you, sounds like you at this point have learned how to make uh, lemons into lemonade, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I forget, I was doing a radio show the other day, was interviewing me about the book and this whole idea of rebirthing yourself or reinventing yourself. And the realization that I came to talking with that host was the first few times I did that, it was me killing off an old version of me that I hated. Right? Like, so being in jail at 15 years old, I realized, okay, I don't want to be that guy anymore. When my business was seized and, you know, I was sleeping on the floor and it sold all my furniture and eating macaroni and cheese 3 times a day. And I don't mean Kraft, the good stuff. I mean the store brand, because that was 4 boxes for $1, right? Kraft was 3 boxes for $1. So at that time, right? So you know, I was like, I hate my life. And the reason I hate my life is because I hate myself. And, you know, being in that dreary, depressing hotel room, staring at the dumpsters in the parking lot, thinking I was going to kill myself, you know, I just like, okay, the reason I hate my life is because I hate who I am. I hate who I've become. And I realized I didn't have to kill myself. I just had to kill the things I didn't like about myself. You know, I got to there at that state because it was the breakup. I just gone through a breakup, and it was like the 11th negative dysfunctional relationship in a row. You know, the names changed, the face changed, but it was like the same person kept coming back. And then I realized, no, the only one constant in all these 11 negative dysfunctional relationships is me. So maybe I'm part of it, you know. So, and that was true in all areas of my life, but I really got it because of those repeating negative relationships. And so those first few times I was killing off an old version of me that I hated. But it evolved to where I started to like myself, and then I started to love myself. And that meant I could let other people love me, because that had been my problem. I wasn't going to let anybody love me because I didn't think I was worthy of it. And when I got to that point, now I feel like these new reinventions I'm making, these new rebirths I'm making, aren't because I'm running away from a version of me I hate anymore. Now I feel like I'm running toward a higher version of me that I desire. And I think that's where we all want to get to. The conscious people, that, like I said, the people binging out all weekend on Netflix who are just happy, you know, getting by. No, maybe that this doesn't speak to them. But for the rest of us, I feel that's how we manifest a prosperous life, is we get to that point where we are going toward that higher version of ourselves that we desire.
Awesome. Well, tell me, so when did you decide, and I guess why did you decide to sort of start, um, sharing your story and writing books, being sort of a motivational sort of thought leader? Why was it important to you to start actually like sharing this stuff with other people?
Yeah, totally backed into it. And no conscious. I did know I wanted to be a writer. I was a reader as a child, and that's what ultimately saved me, I believe, was my love for reading, which became a love for learning. And so, although I'm not college educated, I'm very knowledgeable in many things, right? Because I create my own curriculum. And so I did feel, I love to read, and I thought one day I'm going to write a book, and I thought it would be like the great American novel or a Robert Ludlum mystery thriller, which I ultimately will still do. I'm going to write probably a sci-fi trilogy, will probably be my next project. But I actually was in direct marketing, direct sales, and I had a team, and people needed training. And I thought, they don't advance very rapidly. They don't learn these skills. I'm going to do. And the first rank in that company, you were called a supervisor if you achieved a certain rank. And so I said, okay, I'm starting a supervisor school, and I'm going to do it once a month. And, so I would just get a meeting room at a hotel and do this training for my team. And then other people heard about it and asked if they could come. And it's like, yeah, give me $5 for the donuts and then cover the meeting room and you can come. And then people started flying from New York and flying from California. And then people started asking me, well, if we paid all your expenses and your plane ticket, could you come to Chicago and teach our team there? And so I became a trainer without even thinking about it. But I was teaching marketing stuff, direct marketing. And I think my first midlife crisis, I said, okay, I'm going to retire. I'm just going to race cars and play softball and drink out of a coconut. And I did that because I just said, if I have to do one more seminar on how you get a prospect's phone number, I would rather stick a fork in my eye. So I'm done. And I had this thought at 3 a.m. when I was supposed to leave the next day for a seminar in San Francisco. And I had made up my mind by the time I got on the plane, I'm going to sell my company and close it down. And I had a sale arranged in like a week and a half. And that's it. I was done. And I did that for like 9 months, and I was going crazy. And a dear friend of mine told me, you got to be back on the platform. You need to be a speaker. And I thought, yeah, I could do this, but I could do it on my terms. I don't have to teach this marketing stuff. I could teach the stuff that I'm really get lit up about, which is this prosperity stuff. Because I had been teaching these marketing seminars and then trying to sneak the mindset stuff in the back door. Because, nobody was paying me for that. They were paying for me for how do I make at least $100,000 a year selling stuff. But to me, it's whether it's softball, baseball, hockey, business, sales, marketing, 90% of it is mental. And so I thought, okay, if I'm going to come out of retirement, I'm going to teach the principles of prosperity. And so that's what I did. I just remade myself again and came back doing that. And I've been doing it ever since.
How did it change speaking to the marketing audiences versus more of the, I guess, sort of personal growth minded people? Was it pretty similar when you made that transition, or did you find that you needed to approach your presentations any differently?
The craft of professional speaking is the same regardless of the topic. I didn't learn any craft. I just thought, okay, this stuff I'm teaching is so good, it doesn't matter. I don't have to do, all those glitzy motivational speakers. They can do that crap. I show people how to make money, and I don't care. I can stand up here in blue jeans and tennis shoes and just give them information, and it's so much value to them. And that's what I did. And then I joined the National Speakers Association and started going to their conventions, and you get to see the world-class presenters. And I thought, wow, I could work on my craft. I could learn how to integrate humor better in the stuff. I could learn to be a better storyteller. I can craft the speech in a way so that, and then you realize, okay, I'm not responsible for the audience, but I'm responsible to them, and that I should present my content in the way that would give them the optimal chance of understanding it and applying it. And so I began to study the craft of professional speaking. And again, I mean, I could do a marketing seminar tomorrow. I could do a seminar on how to buy real estate, or I could do a seminar on Bitcoin or whatever. It would still be the same craftsmanship that I would use to do a prosperity speech or training.
Okay. And tell me like about one of these prosperity trainings, like what's sort of the big thing that you see, or what's your main goal, I guess, as far as getting the audience to understand certain points, certain themes, approaches to life? What do you hope that people get out of like one of your events?
What I hope that they get out of it is that they will recognize that they are trapped in the matrix. And it's not the exact matrix that Neo did in the movie, but they literally are in a matrix. A matrix, you will really get this. It's a matrix created by marketers and social media and algorithms, and because every time they get on their phone, every time they buy a product, every blog that they click to, every podcast they listen to, every WhatsApp message they send, Zuckerberg is reading their allegedly encrypted messages, right? To know what is the next ad we need to put on their YouTube pre-roll, and what is the next banner that needs to be when they log into Facebook or YouTube or whatever. And Google and Amazon and Apple and all of these companies have contributed to creating a matrix. They don't own it. They didn't design it. They didn't mean to create it. But the truth is, Instacart could know when their women customers are pregnant before they do, based on their food purchases. That, Amazon can know your sexuality before you do. If you're a closeted homosexual, bisexual, non-binary, they'll know that before you do, right? Because of the matrix, because they have every click you've ever done. And big data so it's created this matrix, right? So what I want people to understand is they're living in a matrix, and they have been brainwashed in all the important areas of their life. And in this new book, I broke it down into 6 areas, right? Money, success, marriage, relationships, sex, sexuality, health and wellness, career and work, and whatever. It's say one more, but it's like 6 main areas that I say you have core foundational beliefs And those core foundational beliefs were cemented in your mind before you were 10 years old. Well, God and religion is the other category, right? So if you went to catch a kid's cataclysm or whatever, and the nurses were smacking your knuckles and telling with a ruler and telling you you were born a sorry sinner and you need to repent if you want to get rewarded and go to heaven when you die. Your core belief about God and religion was probably set before you were 6 years old. If your parents were arguing and fighting and one cheated on the other or one is abusive to the other, your core foundational belief about marriage and relationships before you were 8 years old. Sex and sexuality, you were programmed with more batshit crazy ideas about sex before you even reached puberty, right? So, and money, I mean, how much, how do you know how old you were before you were programmed that money is bad, rich people are evil, it's noble or spiritual to be poor, to be successful in work, you've got to be a bad parent, to be a successful company, you have to pillage the environment and exploit workers and lie to the shareholders. And this is all of the mind viruses that you've been programmed with before you were 10. So of course you're sabotaging yourself. Of course you're blowing up your health. Of course you're blowing up your relationships because you don't even know you're brainwashed, right? So what my work has been about for 30 years now is recognizing the core programming that you've been in, the mind viruses, the memes, and not memes as in a slide on Instagram, but memes as in Dr. Richard Dawkins, mind viruses that you have been infected with, mind viruses that parasitize the host and cause you to replicate the virus. And so you have all these viruses. Money is bad, rich people are evil, it's spiritual to be poor. And so on the conscious level, you say, well, I want to be wealthy, I want to be happy, I want to be successful. But at the subconscious level, you have the programming that rich people are evil and you don't want to be an evil person. So you better sabotage yourself so you don't become an evil person. And with all the neuro work that you do, that if you got a conflict between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, we know who's going to win that battle, right?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I want people to understand is that, hey, you can take control over that. You can do a deep dive into your beliefs and find out the limiting beliefs you have. You can blow them up and you can replace them with empowering beliefs.
How many people would you say, because I feel like there's a distinction between sort of having a maybe an awareness of what your beliefs are, maybe the next step being gaining the ability to actually start changing them. But when people like start see have one of your events, like how many people do you feel like have that mindset that your beliefs actually are changeable, that you're not you're not stuck the way you are today? That's not necessarily who you're going to be in the future. As we've sort of talked about, you can sort of blow up the old you and create a new version of yourself. Like, is that a struggle to try to impart that information to most people, or do you find that most people get it pretty easily?
It would be a struggle to try and impart that to most people, but that's not a struggle that I choose to do, right? So I've built my practice in a mindful way, right? So I do a podcast like you. Mine is called the Power Prosperity Podcast. I don't take ads for it. I don't have sponsors for it. I just put it out there for free. I have a blog at randygage.com. I've written more than 10,000 blog posts. Again, no membership. It's all free. I just put it out there. So I put out this content and people see it and they share it. And the people who are open to it, they resonate with it. And then they get on my email list, or they subscribe to my podcast, or they get on the RSS feed of my blog. Now I hope they'll join me every Saturday for these lessons. I'm doing them on Zoom. And basically, so what I've done is I've created a prosperity ministry, but it's not a church. I'm calling it the unchurch, right? It's a for-profit spiritual ministry. And I just said it, I can't keep doing all these blogs, all these podcasts, all these things for free, you know? So I'm going to just once a week, I'm going to do this prosperity service, like a celebration service, on a love offering basis. Whatever people want to pay, they pay. And if they say, I don't have any money, I can't afford to send $1, I don't care. Watch it. I'm just putting it out there. And the people who can afford it and the people who want to support my work, support it. And they will circulate the prosperity saying, you know, some people, they don't believe in God or religion and they tithe to me because they see me as the source of their spiritual nourishment, right? Other people, they have a church or temple or mosque or synagogue they tie to, but they support my work by saying, okay, I'm going to send $100 every month to support your work. And because I know there's people who need it and they can't afford to pay anything. And I want you to be able to keep getting your message out there. And I love to be here every week and learn what you're teaching, right? So I don't try to proselytize. I don't try to convert the people. You know, one of the things people have to recognize is that you can't be treated for prosperity. There's no medicine, there's no operation, there's no treatment that will make you prosperous. You have to be open to receive it, right? So that's really the underlying philosophy of all my work, is for the people who are open to receive it. And the people, you know, and to me, I think it's science, right? I believe it's physics, right? I believe that there's prosperity everywhere in the universe, that it's in the ethers around us. This is what Reverend Charles Fillmore taught back when he founded the Unity Church, that we're surrounded in the ethers by prosperity, and the way we manifest them is through ideas. And so I look at that and say, okay, what's the practical application of that? How does somebody manifest prosperity? And I believe there's two ways. We solve problems or we add value. So when we, you know, if you will solve a problem for somebody, they will gladly pay you to solve that problem. If you can add value, if you can show them, whether it's General Motors, Pizza Hut, Pepsi, Canada Dry, a political campaign, a nonprofit, and if you can show them how they can do their process quicker, cheaper, more efficiently, you know, if you can add value to that equation, again, they're going to throw money at you. And so that's how I believe we come up with ideas for solving problems and adding value. And that's how we manifest prosperity. And so that's the kind of principles that I'm teaching. And the people who are open to it, they adore it. And the people who are not open to it, they're like, well, he's that's all woo-woo crazy stuff. He must be singing Kumbaya and burning incense and, you know, meditating in an ashram in India, and, you know, whatever. But to me, I think it's physics, you know, that my business is called the Prosperity Factory, because I believe we can create, it's like a factory. We can create a conveyor belt and manufacture prosperity.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if like there's nothing that can be physically created without it first starting as a thought. right?
Exactly.
So if it all starts with our thinking, I mean, you can't really, what's the argument against that? I mean,
Exactly.
to me, it is science. Yeah.
Absolutely. Every accomplishment was created twice. First, in the mind of a visionary or dreamer, and only secondly do we manifest it on the physical level.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Well, Randy, we're coming up on the end of the show. I really enjoyed our conversation. Tell me, like, where do you see your work going? Do you feel like the need is to or your desire is to kind of just spread the word to more and more people, or do you feel like you'll transition in terms of what your future books or podcasts will be about? Where do you kind of see yourself going with this?
Yeah, I do. I'm a writer at my core, so I just want to keep writing books. I want to write at least one book a year for as long as I'm left on this planet. And then I'm going to try to channel all my other work through this, Saturday ministry, if you will, where, and then my podcast will be the audio replay of the Saturday program each week. And my YouTube channel, I'll put up a video replay of the Saturday lesson each week. And I'm going to just put it out there in the universe and see. Like I told you, I just started it. Last week was the first one. And if the universe supports it, then I'll continue doing it that way. And it's my hope. I've already got contacted by people in Mexico and Colombia who want to translate it and do it in Spanish down in their countries, and a guy in Moscow who wants to do it in Russian. And I'm hoping that spreads all over the world, that people will just take up those lessons each week. And, that's what prosperity is about. It's circulating it, because that's how we really, enjoy it, celebrate it.
Well said. Well, Randy, if people want to find out more about your work, your podcast, your books, where would you direct them to?
Okay, everything, my kind of Starfleet command site is randygage.com, and you could find pretty much everything there. Best place to connect with me is Twitter. That's really where I engage people. And the new book is called Radical Rebirth, and it's actually coming out January 12th, 2021. So Amazon, or if you're in other countries and there's not Amazon there, you can go to randygage.com/radical rebirth, and for the international, or if you want a personally inscribed one.
Awesome. Well, for those listeners who did enjoy the show today, go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're Roscoe's Wetsuit Neuro. And you can also find audio versions of the podcast available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, just about anywhere else audio podcasts are available. You can find us. Randy, again, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really enjoyed talking with you.
Yeah, thanks, Toby. It's been great being on. Peace, everybody.
Awesome.